Quick content warning for this episode. Just want to get this out there. Whenever Dave Dwonch and I get together, there's going to be some stories told. There's going to be some raunchy language, and there's going to be some good times. So please, if you regularly listen to Comic Timing in the privacy of your own home with kids around, you may want to wear some headphones for this one. Same thing with The Office. This is not office ready. However, it is a damn fine time that I'm sure you will all enjoy. Enjoy. Comic Timing is member supported by listeners like you over at patreon.com/comic timing. We thank you so much for your continued support of the show. For as little as $1 a month, you can join in on all the fun, get occasional early releases, and random diaries and stuff like that. So if you want to learn more about the show and be a part of the show, the place to do it is patreon.com/comic timing. Hey there, folks. My name's Ian Levinstein, and welcome to episode 220 of Comic Timing. And this episode is another interview episode as I catch up with an old friend who's sipping on the white wine, relaxing in his geek room that makes me jealous just looking at all the glorious, glorious artwork and toys behind him. The one and only Dave Dwonch. Welcome to Comic Timing.
Oh, what's going on, everybody?
Oh my God, man! We talked before we went on air here. That man cave you have set up is enviable, my friend. It is completely enviable.
Hot tip: if you're going to work from home and be trapped in a room for 10 hours a day, you should just surround it with the things you love. And I don't. And my wife, like after week one, was like, "Please unchain me from your desk." So I was like, "Okay, fine." I filled it with all the comics that I grew up with. It's crazy though, because I overthink it a little bit. Like I'm on Zoom all the time for work, and I'm like, I need a raise. And everyone's like, well, why do you have a Daredevil #1? If you sell that, that's your raise right there. You don't need that fucking comic book. And I'm like, no. I need more money to buy more of those comic books.
Hell yeah. It goes in, it goes out, and then you get a nice shiny little thing to put on your shelf. That's what being a nerd is all about.
Well, I'm like a classic, binge purchaser while drunk, and so like specifically that Daredevil one, my wife and I were at the Alamo. We were going to go watch a movie. I can't remember what, but we were having a couple drinks beforehand, and I saw one pop up, and I was like, you know what, I really want this comic. And she's like, you know what, Dave, it's your money. It's fine, it's your money. And then we continued to drink and then go see the movie. I forgot. I bought it. I made an offer. You know, when you do something on eBay, if they accept the offer, it just happens. Like a week later, it showed up at my house, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much, Megan. Thank you for this gift. She's like, I didn't buy that for you. And I was like, oh, I bought that for me? And then I had to go backwards into my eBay, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I did buy that. I told her how much it was, and she was like, never again are you allowed to do that. And I was like, but it's my money. And I found the loophole in the Matrix. And I'm like, yeah. But after that, honestly, what am I going to do? Go to Spider-Man 1, X-Men 1? Like, no way.
Oh, no, you could possibly never do that. No.
I'm when I'm collecting, I'm like a real big multiple first appearance person. Giant Size X-Men is like a perfect example of that, where there's so many great characters.
Oh, hell yeah.
Is there? Yeah, that's a solid book. So, I accidentally drunkenly have 2 of those. But, like during COVID, it was rough because like everyone was doing that. Everyone was stuck at home and they just wanted to fill their life with the things that were meaningful.
Yep.
And, I bought a 3.5 for the same amount that I bought a 7.5 for like a year later. And I'm sure that people listening to this are going to be like, hey, the same fucking thing, man. Like, it's rough. And now I'm like, well, one's on display and the other one's in a safe. That's how that works. So,
and that's just it. Yeah, you get one for prosperity and you get one for display, and that's the way that rolls. My big COVID purchase is a little bit behind me. The 4K TV that I knew that like if I was going to sit here and be stuck in this place, I needed to be watching movies in the best possible screen. So we got an OLED 4K. I think it's like a 56 incher which was just big enough with like a Roku soundbar, and it completely just, made it worth it to sit in the living room and watch movies when you couldn't go anywhere else. And it still works and it's still there. So there you go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I hate to say it because it makes me sound like a fraud being a comic creator and whatnot, but like, I've made a rule with myself that like I get up early, I work on comics, I then clock into the day job, and then by 6 o'clock at night, I'm done and I spend time with my wife.
That's great.
Happy wife, happy life, right? But it really does limit the amount of comics you can read. Like,
sure.
I typically have like one day a week where I'm like trade paperback heaven. And at that point, I'm locking the door to the office so I can just sit there and read it.
Of course.
Trade or a graphic novel.
Martha works for a school, so she's regularly in bed long before I am. So I have like a solid like 3 or 4 hours where I can, watch whatever I want to watch and, read whatever I want to read. And there's way more watching than reading going on. But I do remind myself every now and then, it's like, you really should be catching up on, insert comic here when you haven't done that in a while. And it's nice to just sit on the couch with an iPad, relax for a little bit, and catch up on whatever DC Infinite or Marvel Unlimited stuff that you haven't read in a while.
Right. I think that's the problem with those Unlimiteds, though. It's like you have access to everything in the world. Yeah, exactly. And if you're not in it every week and you're not like looking forward to releases on Wednesday or whatnot, you're not in the know. So like I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get back into it. I bought the House of X hardcover.
Oh, so
read
good.
It, friggin' loved it. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go on Marvel Unlimited to read the rest. And I was like, how the fuck does any of this work? Like, why isn't there a reading list on Marvel Unlimited where I could just blast it? I don't even care if I have to read Marauders, but tell me when and how. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh man, it's crazy.
Especially with House of X and that entire Krakoa era. We just did an episode on Krakoa like 2 or 3 episodes ago, and I still kind of have parts of it that I don't entirely explain because they managed to put like 10 years of continuity in 5 and made it work. And it's an excellent era of X-Men. It will take you forever to get through it because there's just so much.
Yeah, I like to say you got to read that and then you have to read it high because then you're like, oh, that's where his brain was when he made this. It's so crazy.
It's like reading Ditko Doctor Strange, man. It's like if you're not on LSD, don't even bother. Like that's.
Right, totally.
Oh my God. So I want to start here, because you've been on Comic Timing once or twice, when I've been like walking the floor at a convention and stuff like that. But like, let's situate yourselves with listeners that may not have heard you before and start at your origins, man. Like, what got you into the realm of comics to start with? Like, what made you the giant ass nerd that you are today?
Oh, dude, 2 big things. And I like every Comic 101 panel I'm on or whatnot, like I tell this story, but I'll start at the beginning. My dad, we were on the West Coast. My dad got a job, or he got transferred to the East Coast, so he was living in New York, and he was an engineer for Pacific Bell. Yeah. So back in the day, he was gone for like 3 to 4 months at a time, and he would come back for a weekend or 2, and he would bring a stack of comics, and it was like 1982, 83. So like, he didn't know anything about comic books, but he knew that I loved them. So he would go into the best stores in New York. At the time, like, even they didn't even know what they had at that point. You could buy, that giant size X-Men I was talking about earlier, you could buy that for like $30 or whatever. Yeah. So my dad would come home with stacks of just rad stuff, and we would read them together. And I would literally sit on my dad's lap, and we read the Wolverine series. We read TMNT. Like, he got me a first print, which I then fucking sold when I was in college for weed, like an idiot.
No!
So stupid. No, I know. But don't worry, I've got more sob stories like that because I worked in a comic shop. Like I love them so much that I got a job in a comic shop when I was 14, and I worked there till I was 30, 32.
Nice.
So like my collection's pretty deep, But what really got me into making comic books, it was in 1989. I'd have to do the math on how old I was, but like probably older than I think I was at mid 1989. But I went up to the writer of Captain America at the time, and it was during that the captain phase. You remember when Steve gives it up and he basically becomes the U.S. agent, and then they replace him, becomes the captain, and yada yada. So I brought that Zek cover that was the bleeding stripes from the flag, and he's like looking defeated, and it says "Cap no more" on it, right? I
Yep.
didn't know that because it's like a classic gangster cover. I brought it to the writer, and I said, "Could you sign this for me?" And he opens it up to the first page, and there's like a smush, just smudge on it, right? And he turns to what I thought was his child at the time, turned out to be his assistant, and he's like, "Look, there's a misprint on this. You need to find this kid another." You found that really quickly. Like he was like, "You need to find this kid a replacement because at Marvel Comics we don't do it this way." And I was like, "Okay." And the kid was like, "Really, seriously, really? I'm what?" And Mark Gruenwald at the time said, "Yeah, we don't do it like this. Go find this kid a book. Stop complaining. Go find the kid a book." So now I'm standing there like with my dick in my hand, like, what am I supposed to do here? And I'm like this awkward little kid, right? And I'm just standing there waiting, and like 5 minutes becomes like 15 minutes, and I'm standing there just nervous. And Mark asks me like what I want to do with my life. And I said, I think I want to work in comic books. And he was like, "Well, why don't you sit down next to me where the kid was?
Oh my
and
God.
I'll teach you everything I know about comic books."
Wow.
And okay, cool, great, Mark, awesome. I didn't realize at the time. Well, first of all, I was it was post Squadron Supreme, so I didn't really realize that it was the same guy that basically wrote Kingdom Come.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm
the man that essentially ran Marvel. Like, come on.
Yeah, editor in chief.
Yeah.
Right? So he's telling me how panels are set up, how dialogue works, actions versus reactions versus too many actions to panel, left to right, all that good stuff. And I left, and then the kid came back, and Mark signed both copies for me. And I, after Mark passed, I sold the perfect one, and I kept the busted one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I still have the busted one, and I know I could get it slabbed or whatever, but I like opening it every once in a while. He signed it, and then he drew a little American flag in it. And
cool.
It was such a transformative interaction.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I was like, I'm on a path now, right?
Yeah.
And I've had a few things like that happen to me in comics, like Mark A. Nelson, who was the original artist of the Alien miniseries for Dark Horse.
Yeah.
I met him at a show, and I gave him a poster of one of the panels that was blown up into a 24x36 poster that I got at a Hot Topic or something. And I brought it over, and he's like, "I've never seen this before." And I was like, "Well, you drew it." And he's like, "I drew it about 3x3 inches." He's like,
"I've never seen it."
And it looked perfect. It looked so awesome, dude. I mean, I swear to God, it was the best thing I've ever seen. And he was like, "How do you want me to sign it? Gold or silver or whatever?" And I did it in gold, and he drew an alien head at the bottom of it. And then he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, "I want to be an inker." And he's like, "Sit down with me. I'll teach you everything I know." And
God damn, man.
I left with like some of his brushes and a story and I think at that point I was 15 and my friends were 16, and we all went to this convention, and then they ditched me because I wouldn't leave this guy's table. But yeah, for me, it's my formative years in comics were being welcomed and accepted by legends, and to this day, if I see a sketchbook in a kid's hands, I'm like, "Let me see it. I want to see it."
Yeah.
I'll give you some advice. If a kid is good, I don't want to say good enough. If a kid is at a point where I feel like they should sit down and start sketching, like me and Super Ugly and Grant, we started doing conventions when we were 15, 16, and we were tabling.
Love it.
We had no right to be doing any of that, but. And, nowadays you see a young kid at a table and you're like, "That's the cutest thing ever. I'm going to support him," right? Back when we were fucking kids, adults were like, "Why are you here? Who the hell are you? You deserve that table." And I'm like, "It was $75. Get over yourself." Like anyone can buy this table, And I think that's what I love about comics too, is like anyone can do it.
Yeah.
It's just finding your audience and finding your voice and refining your craft. And
absolutely.
Over the amount of time that I've been doing it, I think I've gotten to a point where I feel pretty good about where I'm at. I mean, there's always a couple of things like you wish that you had more readers. You wish that you had planned a little bit better. But but or even maybe budgeted properly.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest thing now.
Well,
Is like my wife.
there's always going to be like things like that, like oh, should I have really gone and bought all 20 issues at the store this particular day, like yeah, you know what, for the sake of my reading and for the sake of my enjoyment at the time, yes. Should I have saved that money? Probably, but guess what, didn't happen, so it goes.
Yeah.
That's the way the collector's mindset works sometimes. And also, like with what you talking about with like Legends, I love hearing stories like that in particular, because like there's so many shitty stories I hear about, like seeing a guy, guy meets a guy on a bad day and just gets brushed off or what have you. It's stuff like that that breeds new readers and also new professionals, being accepting of the fan base and opening yourself to new comic experiences for new individuals. Like, that's the way to do it, man. Like, the fact that you got 2 of those in your life, that is so goddamn cool. That is so goddamn cool.
I was on a panel and I told that story, and Howard Mackey, the creator of Danny Ketch Ghost Rider, sitting next to me on this panel, and all of the people on this panel were far too overqualified to be on a Comics 101 panel. I'm like, guys, you've circled the world on your creations. I'm like just a dude with a Kickstarter. So a lot of the advice that I had were it was a little bit more accessible to the crowd at that panel. But I told the story, and Howard was like, "What year was that?" I said, "I think it was in 1989." And he was like, "First of all, I want to let you know that sounds exactly like Gruenwald." And he was like, "I just want to let you know, in 1990, I was his assistant, and he would have done the same thing to me, and I would have been pissed off just like that other person." And he's like, "But to this day, my kids call him Uncle Mark." And then at that show, I'm sitting across from Howard. Coincidentally, we were sitting across from each other, tabling. Yeah. Coincidentally, we're sitting next to each other at a panel. And then his kids come up, and they start regaling me with stories about Mark. And I felt like I was a part of that family without ever knowing it. And I just thought, wow, that's the coolest fucking thing that's ever happened to me, that it's come full circle. And now I'm tabling next to Howard. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
I want to know the alternate universe out there where Gruenwald does not leave us way too soon, and just how different Marvel Comics would have looked, because he was such a driving force, and he was such a key personality for the era, not only of Captain America, but the Avengers and tons of other characters, Squadron Supreme, as you mentioned, like just what he could have managed to do had he not been taken from us so damn soon. It's one of those what if nagging things in my brain all the time whenever Gruenwald comes up.
I've learned to accept it in that I think that my wife and I talk about it all the time. She's a big music person, but she was like, Kurt Cobain dying was probably the best thing for him musically. I obviously not to underscore the tragedy of it or whatever, but if you hit your pinnacle that early, it's only downhill, right? So like Mark's contributions are astounding and poignant and short-lived. Yeah. But I, and again, coming from having my interaction with him, I think I would be less interested in what Mark would do creatively, but Mark's impact on creators. If more people had had that interaction with Mark, we would be in a much better culture in comics. And I think that's what Mark's legacy will be. That and Squadron Supreme and Captain America, obviously. But you know what I'm saying? Like he's just a fucking legend, man. Like really awesome. I mean, it's like if Tom DeFalco was like, "Hey kid, just come sit with me and I'll teach you everything." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Okay, crazy. We got a Brevoort though. We have Brevoort. He's a sweetheart too.
Oh
So
yeah, no, tons of positive stories I've heard over the years about Brevoort and also being pretty damn welcoming as well. And I follow him on all the socials and whatnot, the stories he tells about years and years and years of being in the biz and the experiences are all well worth it, 100%.
totally. He's one of those guys that if you email him, I'm not going to give you his, not going to give your listeners his email address.
His email address is I'm sorry. Listen.
It's pretty easy. It's just like sort of like a name at marvel.com. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's one of those people that's extremely welcoming. And I think that, he's in it for comic books and
Yes.
for good comic books, right? I mean, I think that we get things are a little muddled, or they can get a little muddled.
Mhm.
And I think that just comes from the monthly aspect of comic books. Like
Oh
something's
yeah.
got to come, right? And so sometimes it's very hit or miss. But on the whole, I mean, comics are rad.
Hell yeah. And comics right now are rad, like with all the different ways you can put comic books out there. Whether it be on the web, whether it be in stores, whether it be single issues, whether it be graphic novels, whether it be web comics, digital comics, you name it. There's so many different outlets and opportunities for creators to get their stuff into the hands of readers these days. And it like people are like, every now and then you get a harumph like, I miss when comics were like this or comics were like that. It's like, no, comics are comics. And there's just so many different opportunities and ways to get such new and interesting things these days that I absolutely adore where comics are right now as a medium.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had a more creative decade. Well, I can't say that because Marvel really knocked it out of the park in the 70s.
Fair enough.
But for modern times, I feel like the last 10 years in comics have just been an explosion of creativity and quality. Just
Oh yeah.
straight up, it is hard to get noticed. It is hard to maintain that level. But I think that there are a lot of indie creators that have set the bar for what an indie comic should be. And Marvel and DC, obviously tried and true. It seems, especially DC, seems to be taking a lot of risks with creators, and I really admire that about them.
Mhm.
That said, like mainstream superhero comics just aren't really my bread and butter anymore, just because there's so much of it. I'm like, I like I said earlier, I'm like, man, I would really love to read all these X-Men comics. I just don't know how any of it fits together anymore. And now I
Absolutely.
just feel like a 50-year-old dude, which I am. So it is what it is. But
Well, but that's just it. You're creating comics, and that in and of itself is a damn fine way to continue to be into comic books. And whether it be the current Kickstarter, whether it be other stuff that you've worked on, sure, it's a completely different aspect of being in comic books, but your love shows with every single book that you come out there with, whether it be the different genres that you've worked in or the different premises and concepts. Like that stuff that you read in the 70s and 80s and 90s and today very much make what you're doing now that much more special because, you want to honor that work and you want to make your own footprint in the medium. So absolutely.
yeah, and I told my wife, like, it's been 20 years, 25 years, something like that I've been doing this. And, I come up with a ton of ideas. Like this phone is just full of useless information. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
like my own like flights of fancy. But what we decided together was that I was only going to put pen to paper if it meant something to me and resonated with me emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's like where something like the automaton comes from. I am a huge, huge Disney nerd, and the urban legends, surrounding Walt Disney's life and death, and they cryogenically froze him, and
Mhm.
underground tunnels in Disneyland, and all of this stuff. I love taking things and exploring them to the nth degree, and I feel like that's what the automaton was. But you read it, and
Yeah.
Ian's read more of it than anyone actually. Like everyone else has read the first issue. You've read like three.
Yes,
Um,
I have. Yes, I have. And I was very happy to do so. I'll tell you what, man.
you can tell that the main character, Jeannie, is me. I mean, it's like 100% me. I was in art school, and I forced my parents to put me in art school. I drew my dad ripping my heart out, and I left it on the table after he told me that I couldn't go to art school. I would be an engineer. And so I drew feverishly, and I left it on the table, and I went to bed. And when I woke up in the morning, they were mortified by this drawing. And you, in the first issue, this happens. And then they begrudgingly put her into art school,
Yep.
and she drops out because, sometimes it's not, sometimes art school is not for everybody,
Sure. Sometimes college is not for everybody.
Right. And so I sort of found my own path, but in that path, it was a lot harder to gain traction because I was raw and I was unrefined and I was unfocused, right? Like I always tell everyone, like, what art school will do for you is provide you that structure that you're going to need, because artists, they're flighty folk. They really, really are. They might as well be gypsies, And so for me, when I dropped out of college and then got kicked out of my parents' house and basically like just couch surfed for like 2 years and finally found like the right people to be hanging out with, like, I'll tell you this: if you're sleeping on someone's couch for more than a week, those people are the same exact people as you, and they will be sleeping on couches too. And so you're just going to be completely unmotivated.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's all about the immediate experience and not about the long-term goal of a comic book. And so I felt like I wasn't very stringent in my plan or my goals, and I just sort of fell into it and fell in love. I fell in love and fallen out of love with comics a few times. But the need to tell stories is always there.
Yeah.
So and I always think in 24 pages and in 6 to 8 panels a thought. Yeah. So it's not gonna change, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, yeah. People are always like, your scripts read like movies, and I'm like, well, that's because I think cinematically, but I also think in panel breakdown.
Yeah, so, and it shows. And honestly, those are my favorite comics to read. Like the ones where I'm literally imagining in my head what this would look like on the silver screen, because it has that cinematic feel, but also page by page and a nice cliffhanger, on the last page to keep you hooked and want to read more at the end. Like that's what makes comic books so great. And I can see that here in the Automaton 100%. And I can 100% see the influence with the wonderful alliteration of a name like Felix Fable. Like that is just pure comic books, man.
Oh yeah. You've got like Jeannie Jong and Felix Fable, and like it's all I ever wanted to do was work for like Disney and fucking, this is like my love letter to everything that I wanted, and you can tell that the heart's in there. You can tell the frustration in being an artist and being a creator is in there.
Yep.
You kind of bury the lead when you're promoting something like this, because at the end of the day, Felix is a giant robot. So that's the lead, right? It's the lead is that saved his brain and put it inside a robot, right? And so like, again, it's that whole Walt Disney thing, but it was, I bury the lead, and then when you really dig into it, you're like, oh, this thing really has a ton of layers to it.
Oh, sure.
Points of view from different styles or different types of artists or creators, and how some of those creators could be jaded. They could hate their friggin' job, but creating is a gift.
Yeah.
When you describe the process to people that don't write, they're like, that's magic. Like they just don't think like that.
Oh, sure.
Not to say every magic trick I have is a fucking slam dunk or anything. I'll drop a card here and there,
Yeah.
But
every now and then the wrong card flips out. That's it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this one, and I've worked with a ton of publishers, and I'm not saying this won't go to a publisher eventually, but the idea of doing the Kickstarter on this one was like, I wanted a hard, like Steve Bryant and I were talking about it yesterday, and you could have a bunch of variant covers, you could have like a ton of different variations on the theme, but for me, the ultimate edition is the thing that I want to present someone with the thing I'm most proud of, and the thing that it's self-contained. Like, I love a graphic novel, I love a trade paperback. Issues are cool, but and they give you a longer tail to promote, but at the end of the day, this one especially, like I didn't even like say you could get it digitally. I was like, that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is about the hardcover. This is about the best version of this book that I could make.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, if some other publisher wants to pick it up, yeah, we could do issues. Sure. We could do a soft cover. Great. But like, there's never a guarantee in comics that you're going to get the version that you want.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
So this is the version that I want.
Which is important for a creator, you know, like, I mean, especially if you're putting everything out there, like you are in a Kickstarter, like you got to be proud of your work. You got to be proud of the format. And there is something to be said for holding a book in your hand still. Like, I'm mostly digital, but I was glad to pledge to this because this is going to go on my shelf and I can page through it. I've got plenty of Disney fans in my life that I know are going to enjoy reading this and borrowing it and checking it out and stuff like that. And it also, and I mean this sincerely, as somebody who's backed a lot of Kickstarters, this is reasonably priced for a hardcover. You know, $25 is the 1 day pass, and then with shipping, it comes out to like 33 or something like that. Like that is not bad at all, man. Like
I definitely did that on purpose. I was like, you know, when was the last time you were able to get a hardcover for like less than 30?
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I just thought I want this to be an experience and something that you can cherish or pass down to someone. And you know, it's the Mark Gruenwald thing. It's literally like passing a legacy down and inspiring people and giving people joy. Yep. And I knew what I wanted to do with this book, but I knew that if I went to a publisher, I was not going to be guaranteed what I wanted.
Sure.
You know? And there are seeds there. I've got a couple of books coming out next year from publishers that, you know, if they do well enough, I'm sure they're going to be like, what's next? And I can always give them this.
Yeah.
But, you know, I come from a place also where contracts have been problematic. And everyone knows the cautionary tales. Everyone's got one. And, you know, I was on the side of the angels while living with the devil. So you're like,
yep.
You know, I would rather not. I would forego all of that drama with something that's this special to me. I don't want any of that at risk at all, and I'd rather just do it myself. But yeah, but thank you for saying that, by the way. That, you know, that this is for your bookshelf. That's exactly what we're going for.
And having read as much of it as I have already, I am thoroughly impressed with the artwork. Number one, it is both grounded, has a little bit of that Disney flair to it, like with a you know, an animated style, but also realistic when it needs to be realistic, even though you're working with like a, you know, 9 foot tall automaton of a Walt Disney type's brain, you know, embedded into a robot. Like it's still strangely grounded, and that's the best damn part of it for me. You know, like it's not weird for weird's sake.
So Santi, the artist of the book, so crazy. Like, we've been working together for 10 years now, and he was working on the Prom of the Dead and the Broken Circle, which are part of a trilogy that, you know, we're going to get back to the third one after we're done with this. But his style is very, very realistic. And he came to me and was like, hey, do you have any work for me? And I was like, well, I'm working on a script, but you're absolutely not the right artist for this. And he was like, put me in, give me a shot. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he delivered what you got on the screen, which is just fantastic. Like, I basically, like, the description I gave him was, I want to tell a noir set in a Disneyland that's drawn like a Pixar movie, right? Like something within that vein. So he came in and, you know, didn't connect any lines and let the color tell the story. And then I worked with Arnaldo, who worked on that Jenny Zero book with me at Dark Horse. And I just gave them as much time as they wanted on it. But there were no deadlines. It was, you know, probably about 2 years in the making, maybe for art, maybe a year and a half. But I didn't realize this about Santi, is he's in Argentina, and I've known that, but I didn't realize he didn't speak English. We went over how our working process works after we met, but we only met after 10 years this year, and he came to Megacon in Orlando.
Uh-huh.
His brother had moved to Orlando from Argentina, but Santi had never been in America. So I was like, why don't you stay with your brother? You come, we'll go to Disney World. It'll be research, and we'll have a great time, and we'll take photos and get all the reference that we need. And I'm waiting for him on this. Like, I'm waiting for his shuttle to arrive at Megacon. You know, they have shuttles of people coming in from parking garages, and he kept missing it because he can't read English either. So he's just like going in a circle, and you know, we're texting, and he's putting it into Translate and responding to me, and like a half hour later, I strike up a conversation with this lady that's next to me, and I'm like, "Oh, you're waiting for someone too?" She's like, "Yeah, just my boyfriend." I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm waiting for my artist." And we start talking, and I'm like, "I've never met him before," and she's like, "This is so awesome." Da, da, da. He gets, I see it. I see his bus. He's like, I'm coming. And I see his bus roll up, and I see him waving out the window.
Yeah.
And he starts stepping down, and I rush over to him like he's a mail order bride or something. Like it's 90 fiance or something. And I just give him the biggest hug ever.
Oh, man.
And I said, "How are you doing?" And he didn't understand. And I was like, shit, it is like 90 Day Fiance.
Wow.
So we wound up talking through our phones the entire weekend. And you know, thankfully we got along really, really well. And we had just the best time, like at the con and at Disney World. And really, I feel like it solidified our partnership. You know, we'd already been a partnership for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, we were like, I just don't think I want to work with anyone else. So, I mean, sorry, everybody, but like, if I have my choice, I'm going to work with Santi all day long, every day.
Well, sometimes that in-person connection just 100% solidifies what you already knew. And I had a Megacon experience in a similar fashion. I had never met Brent before. You know, my longtime Comic Timing co-host, Brent Cassina, we had never met until the first Megacon that I went to. I went there with Raph, Brandon, Christopher, me, and we roomed with Brent. And that was the first time I met him in person. And it was like, okay, this works, you know, and it just 100% solidified. That in-person connection just really lets you know that what you were thinking is right. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you can infer or assume how someone's going to be, but until you're trapped in a real room with them,
you have
no idea. You know? This year's been great for that reason alone. Just getting to meet Santi, and then knowing that we've got a book that, I think it speaks to fans of theme parks and Disneyland and Walt Disney and all that good stuff. But it's not necessary, I don't think. I think it's just a really, every time I pitch the concept to people, they're like, well, wait, why hasn't that been done yet? And I'm like, I have no idea why no one's done this. But we're going to do it in a way that I think is going to, like you said, be bookshelf ready. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to want to keep it.
The only time that this has been done before that I could think of was in a much more raunchy situation, and that was Saturday TV Funhouse. That infamous SNL Saturday TV Funhouse with the Disney Vault. And they find Walt Disney's head in a jar, like that's and the version that he only brings out in parties and all that jazz. Like it's an infamous SNL sketch. Find it online. I guarantee you'll find it if you haven't seen it before. But this is what I appreciate about this so much is that it's nice to see going back to Gruenwald, a character like Felix Fable who just seems genuine. Like reading what I have of it so far, there doesn't seem to be ill intentions there. It's not one of those jaded harumph creators that's over what he's currently doing, but is forced to do so because it's become something popular. Like Felix Fable is a man who loves his works, loves what he's done, and is there for it, even when he's in the body of a robot.
Right. Well, and I'm equal parts both characters, right? It's like I'm not getting any younger, and you have to wake up every day and maybe not reevaluate, but evaluate what makes you happy and what's going to get you to take that first step out of bed. When you're grumpy and tired and your whole body is sore, right? But the idea that this character, Felix, is able to dream and dream big, right? Like, like in this story, the Imagineers are dreamists, and that's the way he works, right? Like he's been given the privilege of creating for people and living through them. And there's a scene in there where, he's hiding out and taking pictures with fans, and that's what he's about. He's about passing the joy on to other people. The mystery aspect of it, the murder aspect of it. Felix dies, but does he really die? No, you don't kill the creative spirit, right? No. Like he's just changing forms. He's metamorphosizing in a way, and I am lettering the 4th issue. It's all completely done. That's the other thing about this book is like everything's done. There isn't like usually when, at least from my experience, when Kickstarters happen, you wait a few months longer than you anticipate because they're finishing the book.
Yes.
Like I think I put a arbitrary, it's coming out in December, but I'm like, no, I could probably put this to print at the end of this and have it ready by like October, and shipped out. So for me, it's I don't like the stress of cramming, right, or rushing things. Like
it does, man. Seriously.
Before I got to it, and now I'm like, it's done. It's great. But he's gonna metamorphosize again, like in the 4th issue. I'll finish lettering it this weekend. I'll send it to you.
Nice.
But I love a bittersweet, happy ending. Like that's sort of my sweet spot because that's life.
I also want to comment on the design of the actual automaton. So absolutely steeped in like Disney lore. Like this is what I would expect out of something of that size and stature and personality. It's not overly angular. It's a simple design that's to the point and gets the point across that this is a robot, but it's also a robot with heart. And that's great.
It's crazy. I had an artist on it originally, and we got to the design stage in a couple of pages, and it just really wasn't quite what I was looking for. And I when Santi and I started talking about it, I was a little skeptical, right? But his art on this book, I mean, it's comic books, so of course the art needs to be it's the first thing people see, and it's the last thing people take away.
Yeah.
And he is, I mean, I almost don't want to speak so highly of him that people start hunting him down, because they will. And we talked about it, and I would love to do every project with him, but the fact of the matter is he's not as, he's faster than I am, which is insane to say. But yeah, here, let me see if I can, allow me to share screen. I'll show you the original.
I most definitely do that. There we go.
And they're good. They're really good. But
there you go.
But the sequentials just weren't quite there. So these were the original drawings for the characters. So pretty close. Pretty close. There are a couple of things that were slightly off, and this has more of a Disney flair to it. But you also have a kind of like a Colonel Sanders meets Johnny Five Alive as a butler, right? It doesn't necessarily. I mean, it could have worked really, really well. But to be honest, I think that his version of Santi's version of Jeannie is like he just nails it.
Yes.
She's just very vulnerable, and that comes from being a product of a tiger mom like I was. So I mean, it's all there. Like I said, it's all me. But design wise, man, Santi is just fantastic. I can't imagine it being anyone else, really.
Oh yeah, those designs that you just shared actually looked a little bit more Don Bluth than they did Disney to me.
Right.
And I don't know if that's 100% intended or not, but I feel like what we get here just is a little bit more evocative of what I feel like you were probably going for.
Right. More like 1950s sci-fi version of a robot.
Yes.
you know, the way he drew Felix, you could kind of see him being a bachelor, whereas the other one was like extremely fatherly. You know what I mean? Like there
Yes.
was really no history in that look, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
Other than maybe he had a plantation with, nothing of it, nothing that like the style is awesome. It just wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
Uh, but a lot of the preliminary work that came out of that, like the original artist designed the park,
Mhm.
and that stayed right. And a lot of the ideas for the park were things that I had come up with, but they made it real. And then Santi got to stand on their shoulders and
Yeah.
develop it.
And the secret lab in particular, I'm a huge fan of. It kind of has that like Batcave feel to it, but also like if the Batcave was designed by Walt Disney.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
exactly what you would expect the mad scientist inventor of a theme park to have inside of it. That's what we've got here, including like a bunch of like balloons and animatronics and what have you.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, we're having just so much fun on it. Like, there is it's not a sequel, but there is a spiritual sequel that we're kind of developing.
Mhm.
But my wife is like, no. She's like, you've said what you needed to say with this one.
Uh,
Go find something else. But that said, we'll see if Santi and I are going to come back. It's another murder mystery, kind of in that same style.
okay.
Uh, but more hyper sci-fi, all ages meets the fly type thing.
So
So
clearly this is going to be the Universal Studios comic, and this one,
like
and the previous one was the Disney comic. All right, I got it. Got it.
I like it. I like it. Let's pit two companies against each other so that we can get a huge bidding war. Let's do that. Let's build a
Exactly.
future together.
Why not? Why not? Marvel, DC, Universal. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not? Let's just make the magic happen. You got a bunch of tiers here too, man. I want to touch on those. Like not only do you have just the straight up hardcover as the main one, but you've got some VIP hardcovers that have been signed and a bunch of other stuff. Go into some of the deets on that.
So like we really just wanted it to feel so Felix Fable was the creator of Fableville, which is the theme park, and he also had a bunch of animated specials a la Walt Disney back in the what late 50s, early 60s or whatnot.
Hmm. Yep.
So he's been around for quite some time, and we really wanted the book to feel like you were experiencing the park at the same time. This experience, we wanted to be able to develop the history. So almost every tier has a something that will harken back to a theme park thing. Like I've got these, so these little guys that are like
Nice.
keepsake little pins, and every backer is going to get one of the. I haven't even announced this. I'm terrible at marketing, but everyone that donates to the Kickstarter right now gets the first issue for free, and we'll be announcing that you're going to get one of these like exclusive pins, so that
Very,
next time
very
you go
cool.
to Disneyland, you can rock this, and people are going to be like, "What's up with the gear ears?"
Eh,
And they're just gears, but it is harkening back to something, right? Um, the the books themselves are the books, but we have the fan club T-shirt, we've got the print, the postcard sets, things
yeah.
that make you feel like the park actually exists. We
Yes.
want you to understand that we've put a lot of thought and heart into this. Um, the stretch goals, I mean, I haven't even like they're at the bottom of the page and it's like a mystery, but I'll tell you right now, it's
Yeah.
um, once we get to a certain point, the stretch goals at 8,000 are going to be a actual admission ticket to the park,
Ooh, very
and
cool.
a button that's the first visit button,
Oh my.
right? The second goal that unlocks at 10,000 is going to be like, you've read it, so
Mhm.
they're working on this Escape from Sasquatch Mountain ride, right?
Yep.
That's all driven by AI and whatnot.
Yep.
It's going to get a VIP badge to
Nice.
the grand opening of the ride, with a lanyard that is specific to Fableville. The unlocking at 15,000 is an oversized print of the first cover, which is actually a wraparound cover, which we haven't even shown anyone yet.
Oh wow.
Uh, but it's it's just fucking beautiful, man. I mean, I mean, like I'm building things that I would want if I went
Mhm.
to a theme park. I would be standing in line for these things, and we're
Oh
just
yeah.
gonna get ready, you know, like we want people to cherish the book for what it is, but
Yeah.
cherish the experience for something else. And I put a lot of sweat into this to make it look as authentic as possible. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to have all of this stuff for myself. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like for like a little kid that
I'll
really digs
yeah.
it, you
Yeah.
know?
Or a grown adult who also is going to wind up digging it, because like a lot of the stuff that you describe here, like I was a Six Flags Great Adventure kid, you know, growing up.
Were
Like
you
I
like a thrill ride guy? Was that like roller coasters?
Yeah,
Was that
roller coasters, like that sort of situation. You know, obviously growing up in New York, Coney Island, you know, riding the Cyclone and stuff like that. But
That sounds terrifying, Ian. I would never want to do any of that. That sounds like you're barking hot dogs all day. Pony dogs and shit. No.
look, you got to be strategic, okay? You ride the roller coaster, then you eat a hot dog. You digest for a solid 20 minutes. You go do something a little bit less, you know, whoopity doo, and then you go and ride whatever the next roller coaster is. And the Cyclone will give you a chiropractic adjustment for the price of the admission ticket, which is even better. So you know, you get all those kinks out in your back, and you walk off, and you're fine.
Oh, you're getting your fucking kinks out. I get it. I get it.
I know. But with Disney, you know, like Martha's family lives down in the Florida area, so like I'm there like once a year now. I've become way more into Disney than I ever was theme park wise, because I never really had that opportunity. Now I'm there once a year. We're gonna do the after hours for the first time in August for Hollywood Studios. So like you get into the theme park at 7:30 p.m. and you don't leave until 12:30 at night.
Okay.
And I am so looking forward to being able to experiencing everything while all the kids are already asleep. Like it's going to be freaking delightful. But everything you describe theme park wise, like, yeah, man, I am completely in on that right now, because like I'm a late bloomer when it comes to theme park experiences. I only got to do Disney like 2 or 3 times in my life, and now like I'm all about riding whatever they have new and interesting. So absolutely.
So that was, you know, it's I'm such a nerd. Like we were at Disney World just this year.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had the Tron ride. I thought it was only like
Yeah.
Japan or something.
Yeah, Magic Kingdom. It literally just opened in Magic Kingdom like about like 7 or 8 months ago, thereabouts.
Okay, yeah. So we were able to catch it, and we were in line. We got, you know, the virtual pass forward or whatever, you know,
Mhm.
right from. And we
Yep.
were standing in line, and the ride breaks, and we're standing in line for like 20 minutes. And Santi and I only have one day
Oh
before
man.
I have to fly back. So we're like, okay, this is going to ruin the whole trip if we have to be here for 2 hours, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We try to leave, and the people that are the attendants were like, hey, if you leave, you forfeit it because we have to keep people rolling, and you are part of this group, and blah blah blah. So I was like, well, we're going to gamble. So I just went to customer service, which is just one of those nondescript
Mhm.
umbrellas. They're peppered throughout the park.
Sure.
But I went in and I was like, hey, you know, like my friend here he's literally from Argentina, first time in America, first day and last day at Disney World. What can you do to help us?
Yeah.
And they gave us fast passes to every ride.
Whoa.
No shit. And so we were like, well, then we'll just go back to Tron whenever we want.
Oh my
And,
God.
and that's the joy of this. They only want you to be happy.
Absolutely.
Like, and I'm not saying that that's a life hack for anyone that's listening, but if you run into problems at Disneyland or Disney
Don't be
World,
afraid to talk about it. Yeah.
people will fix it for you. Yeah, it's pretty rad. And that's the theme of this place. It's the happiest place on earth, right? And it's the only theme park or the only theme park franchise to me that is an actual theme.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like, you know, Six Flags are awesome, especially if you want thrill rides, right? That's
Mhm.
the theme of it. It's just crazy high octane roller coasters. And I love that stuff.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I love being like complete, and I hate the word, but because they use it a lot at Disneyland, but
Immersive.
being immersed, yes.
Yep.
But and I use it a lot in my book too, as a joke. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, it's so immersive. But yeah, I mean that's why I love Disneyland. Like my wife did not get it, and she went with me one time, and that was it. She's like, I've
Oh
never
yeah.
seen person more happy in their life. And I'm like, yeah,
I hate spending the extra money, but spending the extra money to ride Rise of the Resistance was 100% worth it. Because like, not only was that one of, if not the best ride I've ever been on in my life, but just the like you said, immersive experience of it all. Like the fact that it's like 2 rides in one, it's a long ride. So it makes the money that you paid a little bit worth it. Cause it's not like you get on it and 20 seconds later you're off it. Like it's a whole thing. And
the whole thing is a magic experience. The whole thing, like right from you getting onto that shuttle.
Yeah.
It's a magic trick. And you're like, I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't been there, but
oh my God.
You know, they throw the word around a lot, but it is friggin' immersive. It's the craziest thing. The only ride that really rivaled it, it was out in the 90s, and it was the Star Trek experience in Vegas at the MGM.
I wish I'd been able to do that. Yeah.
So fucking good, dude. It was so good.
God.
Holy shit. Like you're waiting in line and you're basically in a museum for Starfleet. So it starts with the Wright brothers, and then as you're going through the line, it shows you how technology is advanced.
Yep.
You go into an elevator, and you basically, while you're in this elevator going up to wherever you're supposed to go, there's a transporter thing that happens, and it transports you, and it opens up, and you're on the bridge of a ship. And I thought it was the Enterprise, but I could be wrong.
No, I think it might be it might have been the Defiant, actually, if I remember correctly.
It might have been the Defiant or the Reliant or something like that. Yeah. It was a bigger ship. It had a next gen bridge, but Riker shows up, and there are live actors that are interacting with him, and they're like, someone in the group has been like the grandfather of someone that's going to stop the Borg later, and yada yada. The Borg have come back in time to kill this person, and then you have to escape because you're getting attacked, and the whole thing's moving, and they put you in a shuttlecraft to escape, and then you do the ride, right, and then you go and you defeat the Borg, and then you wind up crashing back at the MGM, and then literally when you exit the ride, you're in an abandoned elevator shaft where there was a janitor, and he's got a broom, and he's like, the exit's over there. And then you go down the elevator, and you're like, that was the fucking weirdest thing I've ever been on. I didn't even realize I love Star Trek as much as I do, but this moment don't go away. And then you go down, and it opens up to Quark's bar, and there's a Ferengi behind the bar. There are like aliens running around. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna take the piss out of these guys. I went up to a Klingon who was like a giant, in platform shoes, and I was like, man, cool boots. You look like Gene Simmons. I was like, are you a member of KISS? And he's like, I am part of the KISS army. Gene Simmons is our lord. And I was all, great, cool. And I was just like,
my God,
this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. And it
so
really lasted like 5 or 6 years or something.
It was there longer than a lot of people think, but then they just straight up just destroyed the damn thing. Like they didn't even bother like preserving the bridge or anything like that. Like it's very hard to even get like souvenirs from Quarks at this point. Like, it's so. I wish it still existed. I would have gone to it already in Vegas if it still existed. No question about it.
I was literally there on a bachelor party, and it was just like there were 2 different camps of people, and it was like the hard drug users and the wanted hookers, and then like a bunch of nerds. And I was like, well, I'm hanging out with the nerds. And we were like, well, what do we do? And then we were like, well, let's go to the Star Trek thing, I guess. And it was like $40. And all of us were begrudgingly like, well, it's better than doing cocaine with a bunch of hookers, I think.
That is true.
So we did that. And it was worth it. I was like, let's go again. Let's go. It wasn't hard to get into because no one really knew about it. It was so weird. I loved it. But it was a blueprint for Rise, 100%.
No question about it. There's even like I forget whether this was part of the same thing or whether it was something different, but there was part of like a Gene Roddenberry experience or something like that where there's a bunch of people's like VHSs that they converted on YouTube, and you'll see like grandmothers saying, "Let's test the ship's phasers," and like just straight up like if you search like I think like Star Trek Experience or something like that, it'll show up on YouTube, and it's just hours and hours of enjoyment of people that have never acted before attempting to act and doing it horribly. It's beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's a special set of skills. I think you would have just fucking knocked it out of the
Yeah.
park. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hell
You
yeah.
would have killed it. Yeah.
I would have came in full uniform, man. Like I have a way too big for me Riker uniform. That's why I grew this beard in the first place. Actually, was to dress up as Riker for Halloween, and then I realized, wait a minute, I look good with a beard. I'm keeping it, and enough said.
Okay, look here, gentleman's agreement.
Yes.
Next time that we have the option,
Yeah.
you go full Riker, I'll go full like season 5 Cisco.
Oh, okay. All right.
That would be awesome.
I'm down. I'm down. I am absolutely down. We will make this happen. 100%.
But it ends with a shirtless fight. You do know that, right? I mean, it's going to happen. It's like Kirk style.
There's no other way for it to end, my friend. There's no other way for it.
Fair.
Please.
All right.
Bringing it back around. God, I love our tangents. bringing it back around. I love that there's a $100 tier to where you get to sit down and have a caricature of you done. You know, considering Jenny's job is the caricature artist at the park, like it makes perfect sense. And I really hope that there are people that take you up on that offer because that sounds awesome.
Well, that was the thing, right? Like Santi also was a street artist before he was a comic artist.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like he really loved the idea of Jeannie because it's him too. When we were at Disney World, he was like, I think I should apply for a job here. And I was like, I don't think they're going to pay you enough for you to be sitting there in the heat drawing for people, but I don't know for a fact. So I've been looking on the boards to see when something pops up so that he could go and audition for it. But yeah, he was the one that suggested that because he was a caricature artist. He knows he could kill it. But you know, in that, some people just want Spider-Man, right? So he'll do that too. He'll do whatever you guys want him to do. But let me tell you, his caricatures are pretty rad.
I can imagine. If the artwork's good to begin with, the caricatures are going to be that much more awesome. So that's going to happen. You got 22 days left on this thing, man. You're as we record this at about 3,200 of your 6,000. So knock on wood of the desk. So far, so good. And honestly, if you're listening to this episode, do it. Like, get yourself involved, get yourself on the ground floor of Automaton. If you're a Disney fan in any way, if you have Disney fans in your life, they will like this. And if you're just fans of murder mysteries involving robots, then this will absolutely be up your alley. So it's very hard not to say yes to this, man. I am so looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. Fully painted, just... I'm working with the same. We call ourselves the Golden Boys because we're all just like sweet little brown boys. But it's international. We've got Santi in Argentina. We've got Arnaldo, who's the colorist in Puerto Rico, and then little brown me, straight out of Colorado. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of just a troupe of creators that enjoy working together. And I for the foreseeable future, I think that pretty much everything that we do is going to be of this quality, and we couldn't be prouder of it for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm really enjoying it, and it would be remiss for me not to at least bring this up before we change topics. But how much of your own experience went into Jenny's experience? I mean, that obviously, there's some parallels in there, but clearly a very different character. But you draw,
a lot of frustration. It was weird. Like we don't like to talk about the publisher that yes. Everyone's got issues with, that we all worked so hard to make it a publisher, but we call it Voldemort Press now, is what I call it. The name we won't mention. And then I'm like, I mentioned it the other day. I was like, it's Voldemort. The adult line was Voldemort Danger Zone. So if you know anything about anything, you know who we're talking about.
Yes.
But, for me, a lot of what Jeannie's going through is legitimacy. It's that imposter syndrome that almost every artist or writer feels.
Yeah.
You're not good enough. You're leading with your passion, and sometimes passion is larger than talent, and sometimes a lot of times that's not true. You just have to find your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think that the journey that she's on is the journey that I took. And at the end, her journey of acceptance is exactly my journey of acceptance, and it's only because, when we were working at Voldemort Press, like my parents never got comics. They never understood what it was or why, and you're never going to make any money. And you should be an engineer or an analyst or something like that. And I am in my day job, which is what kind of allows me to fund these projects initially. But when I got a gig working with the UFC and the NFL, my parents completely changed their attitude towards what comics were. I was making comics for sports organizations for some reason. I don't even know how that happened. But it was something that they could understand. It was something that they were like, "Oh, we're proud of Dave. Dave's working for the NFL." Like they got that, right? They never got comics or video games, which I worked on, a couple. But while that sounds unfortunate, it takes that long or those are the reasons that parents accept. When you live wanting that acceptance and validation your entire life, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. And I think that so it's a little bittersweet. Like I said, that the ending's a little bittersweet, but it's one of those things where, like I said, I'm only writing things that speak to me and come from my heart. And this is one of them,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And there's a whole dynamic between siblings. There's a whole dynamic between employees, which is also very, very strange. Like when you're art director, a creative director, and you have to deal with people that are emotional in all of the ways, but also put the emotion on their shoulder like it's a badge. Those people can either be the hardest or easiest people to deal with, and you just have to know that it's coming from their heart. And that's sort of where this is all kind of going, it's an interesting ride. I'll tell you, when I first started it, I didn't think that I thought it was cool content. And the more I started writing it and ironing out some of the kinks in it, don't get excited with, I used your trigger word again there with kinks. But it really became something that means something to me, and something that I knew I was going to be proud of because the quality of the book is quality of the book.
Definitely.
I mean, it's there. It's all there. With or without me.
It's palpable. Like in particular, I make it a mission in life to only back Kickstarters where I can see the passion in the project. There are ones that have come out that have looked interesting, but then when I look further in, they're like, I don't know how much their heart was really into this. Like maybe they're whatever. But this is a passion project. It was very, very obvious from the personality of it all, from the preview pages that I saw, and then being lucky enough to read more of it and experiencing that 100%. Man, your passion is there, 100%, and that's what you need in a project like this. And that's what I hope that other people get to experience as well, because you're in for a good ride. You're definitely in for a good ride.
And I'll say this, probably the best selling point I have on this book is I challenged myself to get to a certain level with this book, and I'm afraid I can't get to it again. And that's terrifying.
Oh my God.
But in the moment that we're in right now, and when this closes and the book gets in people's hands, I will be extremely satisfied. And I guess the good news is Voldemort Press, they published another book of mine, which was also based or inspired by a part of my life, which was Cyrus Perkins.
Yes.
For people that don't know, I when I turned 40, I was the Hyundai of human beings. My work is just fucking expired at everything. Everything in the world that could go wrong. Wrong. And I was dying in the back of a taxi cab, and on the way to the hospital, I told the driver, if I fucking die in this cab, I'm gonna haunt it. So don't let me die. Don't let me die. And then I went in the hospital and started writing this book about this little kid that dies in the back of a taxi cab, winds up haunting the driver, solving his murder. And I had sequels on sequels on sequels. I had the whole thing mapped out. And the publisher at the time didn't want to do the sequels. It wasn't successful enough. Now, over the years that I've been doing conventions and all that good stuff, it's like my number one book. Like everyone, they come back to me and they're like, I cried my eyes out because of this book.
Oh yeah, it's good shit. Good shit, man.
So I'm working on the sequel now, and I know that that's solid. Because I had 10 years to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I have no idea what's next. I have no idea what is going to speak to me and make me fully commit. It's got to be something that I feel, and I don't know, man. I think I pulled a whammy on myself with this one for sure.
Well, I mean, I know that Cyrus is coming back, correct? For publication, so that's a step in the right direction. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'm not wrong because I literally just had a previews episode. You've got something in previews this very month, correct?
Wait, do I?
I'm pretty sure you do.
What do I have? I don't fucking know.
You had something that was being reprinted this month because Murd and I definitely.
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah. Banshees.
There you go. Boom.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, man. Right. Yeah. So that's a scout book. Yeah, it's a second print of a first issue that sold out.
Yes. That's what it was.
Kind of rad. I mean, that's cool. That was one of those weird books. Like, man, I like during COVID, I wrote it and completely forgot about it. Not because I didn't love it, and not because it's not good, but it was one of those books that was on a shelf for a long time, and then during COVID, I was like, well, everyone's sitting on their asses right now. I should just go pitch this thing to people, and I pitched it to Scout, and 5 seconds later they responded, and they were like, well, we want it, we love it, and I'm like, well, I'm the prom queen. How the hell did that happen? Like, I don't know. But again, it's another murder mystery. This one's like really steeped in slasher horror. But it's about a girl who she had a traumatic experience happen to her when she was, the summer before moving away to college, and involving one of her best friends dying. And she goes into college with a lot of baggage, and there are these urban legends that the dorm that she's staying in is haunted. And so she starts seeing ghosts and has to figure out why and how. And it turns out that multiple women were killed by a slasher over the course of 20 years. She starts trying to figure out who the killer is, and it brings the killer back out of hiding. And she, in turn, gets murdered and wakes up in the dorm common area surrounded by the ghosts of the other victims.
Oh, wow.
And convinces them to go after this Jason Voorhees style slasher. Nice. So it's like Poltergeist versus Jason, and or a Scream smiley face or whatever. But it was one of those things. I talked to my co-writer Jessica Balboni about it, and originally it was going to be this crime noir, like seedy Las Vegas thing where like a hitman accidentally kills a bunch of people like in this diner while he's trying to off someone else that's in the diner, and then these ghosts go after him. And she was like, that's cool, but what about this? And I was like, oh shit, you just changed the entire thing by taking this supernatural thing and actually making it horror rather than like crime noir, which is what I do.
Yep.
So we wrote it together, and there are a lot of places where like I like to think I'm a horror tourist. Like I love horror, but I'm not like an excessively gory person, and I'm not like a completely fucked up person. Like Sean Gathering is like the most fucked up person I know, but he's also like the most normal person I know.
Somehow manages to combine that beautifully.
It's always the quiet ones, Ian. It's always quiet.
Definitely. That's why I'm loud.
Yeah.
No one would ever think otherwise with me, man. I am exactly what's on the fucking tin. Like enough said.
Yeah. And same. Yeah. Exactly. And so Jessica, huge horror fan, and a lot of, it's violence against women. I am not comfortable writing that. I'm like, that's not my thing, man. I'm like, I'm writing the anti that in almost everything I do. And so like there were uncomfortable situations where I'm like, Jess, I'm not writing this. Like you're writing this. So she kind of served as like my story editor and then like my co-scripter. And, we brought a lot to the table, but the full circle, when we were writing the book, I was like, why don't we were living in the Bay Area at the time. I was like, why don't we take the 5-hour drive to
Yeah.
Disneyland, talk about it there, and then take the 5-hour ride back. And we'll just take notes the entire time. So what I'm saying is everything in my life over the last 10 years has revolved around going to Disneyland and having a good time. So it's why the automaton is what it is, really, too, you know? But yeah. So Scout took Banshees, sold out, and now they're relaunching like with a horror line of books, and they're like really tightening it up a little bit, and Banshees is just kind of part of that now. So
Very cool. And by the way, while you've been talking, I just straight up went on your Instagram. So for anybody looking to actually see the experience that was discussed earlier in this episode of meeting the artist in person at Disney World, check out Dave's Instagram, Dave Dwonch, one word, and you will get to see that, as well as the Tron experience, which, oh man, God.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot freaking wait to ride that ride again. I rode it last year, and it just blew my socks off. It was so damn cool just to get on a light cycle and just get launched.
My only review of it is it's exactly like my libido. It's so awesome to ride, but it's only so fast.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with that ride. Like immediately right after you're on it, you want to go back on it, and you're like, I can't wait for an hour, man.
I know. Yeah. And what I am right about Cyrus, right? That Cyrus is going to be back in print.
Yep. And then next year, they haven't announced it yet, but you know, it is what it is. Contracts are signed. So I have another book coming out through Titan Books out in the UK, cool. Called The Loose End, and that is another story that was plucked right out of my life. I went to Lebanon with my wife for a bachelor party. Well, not a bachelor party, for a wedding. But immediately when we landed in Lebanon, she went to the bridal shower and I went to the bachelor party, and I knew no one there. And we wound up going to a drug den. And I don't speak the native tongue, and there's only one other like American with us, and he's just out of his mind on Molly, and he's just like literally in the car like, I'm really sorry this is happening to you. I like, you know, like you're really nice, and I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now, right? And he's like, we're gonna go get some drugs, some more, and then we're gonna go to like a cabin where there's a bunch of hookers. And I was all, and I'm like trapped in this car with like they're all strangers. And I'm like, you know, fuck it, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. And so then they park the car in front of this drug den, and they leave me in the car because I don't speak the native tongue. And, and now I'm sitting in this car for like a half hour in like 110 degrees. And I'm like, if things go horribly wrong, I'm fucked. There's no way. There's nothing. Yeah. I'm like in a different country. I don't speak the language. My phone doesn't work. And all of the dummies are drugged out of their minds in a drug den. God. So I took that experience with me and I wrote a story. And again, I did a riff on Hollywood where a failed screenwriter or failing screenwriter gets a +1 to like a Harvey Weinstein's bachelor party in Mexico. God. And he's like, you know, because there's all these Klingons, and not Klingons like I'm Gene, but you know, coattail grabbers. And so the idea is this guy's going to go to Mexico and get a movie made with Harvey, or a Harvey character. And the night before he leaves, the mob pulls him in and says, "You're going to fucking kill this guy in Mexico." And it gets out that basically this famous Hollywood producer raped the daughter of the mob boss, who is reinventing herself, changed her name. No one knows that she's his daughter. And so this down on his luck, gambling addict screenwriter has to do this for the mob, or the mob's going to kill him. There you go.
I love how many of your stories come from you almost dying. You know, it really is the best inspiration to write.
Yeah. I'm just getting too old for this shit. Me and Danny Glover, we're just like, nope. I don't even know what the next thing's gonna be. Like I don't know. But you gotta fucking turn lemons into lemonade too,
Hell
right?
yeah.
Like
Yep.
you don't, you're just gonna have fear of leaving your house. So
Hey,
start writing.
clearly, your next thing is writing more books about robots that are reincarnated legends, and that's just going to be your next career path from here. Just make that into a chain.
It's a niche. It's definitely a niche. We'll see how this one rolls out. But I mean, like, even if the Kickstarter doesn't exceed expectations, for you put so much heart and effort and work into something, and you want it to be this experience,
Yeah.
and you never know if it's going to resonate with people or whether or not they're even going to love it or like it. But I feel like at the end of the day, all we really have is the personal satisfaction in our own lives.
Hell yeah.
I always say that there's 5 levels of success in comics, and the first one is literally just doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the biggest success you can have. How many people talk about doing something and they never fucking do it?
Oh, of course.
The next thing is, getting it out in front of an audience, large or small, and getting a reaction, any reaction, good or bad. I love bad reactions because it means I've like fucking made someone so angry that they had to like yell at me about it. Like I love that. I'd like put that on the back cover. Like that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
And then third, everyone gets hung up on direct market. Everyone gets hung up on like, what does it mean to me, and like why I want to be on a major label and all that stuff. That doesn't necessarily equate to money.
No.
I mean, it very rarely does it.
Yeah.
And then, again, it's then being able to take it on the road and spread the good word. Get out in front of people, go to conventions.
Yeah.
Talk to your peers, talk to your friends, talk to people that you want to be friends with. Like build that network up. That's awesome. And then, honestly, the 5th is fortune and glory.
Yes.
If the 5th level of success is fortune and glory, but I think a lot of people have it really, 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 really wrong. Because a lot of people get into it for that very reason.
Yeah.
It's the reason why a lot of people get into music, right?
It's the same. The way I look at it, they go about it like the underpants gnomes. They're like, step 1, come up with idea. Step 2, step 3, profit. They have no idea what step 2 is going to be. And if you don't, then the profit's never going to come, and probably the satisfaction's never going to come either.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I think that personal satisfaction, if you gauge success in those 5 terms, your satisfaction, you'll get satisfaction 5 times.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what keeps you creating. If you're only stuck on one of those things and you don't get it, get out of the business.
Yeah.
You're done,
Yeah, and quite frankly, my satisfaction is having a solid 90 minutes talking to you, my friend, because like this is reinvigorating. This is joyful, and I get stories about drug dens that I wasn't expecting to hear. So that really just brings everything home to roost. It just works beautiful.
I wasn't expecting to talk about it either. Talking about my all ages Kickstarter that's going on right now. But you know what? I mean, like you and I have seen some shit. I can't remember who I was talking to, but like being in comics is like being, and not to downplay veterans, but a lot of comics is like being in a war together.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And so like when you get 2 dudes like us together, it's like war stories. They're gonna come out,
I agree entirely, man, and it has been an absolute delight. And let everybody know one more time where they can find you online, and once again, the Kickstarter and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so if you go on Kickstarter, just type in The Automaton. If you're not confused or concerned about spelling, it's Automan. Is that right? Automaton? No, I
Automaton.
Automaton.
Yeah,
There it is.
automaton. That's exactly like if you've ever been to an automat, which you never have because they don't exist anymore, just add on at the end. Enough said.
There it is. See how I just completely derailed that entire thing. That was amazing. I was like, it's really easy. Look at me watch this out. But yeah, so go to Kickstarter, look for the automaton. If you want to follow me on any of the socials, it's just at Dave Dwonch, like basically everywhere. It's Dave Dwonch. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Kara, yeah, sure. Yeah, I was that for you. And then hellbrain.com is my website, which is, it looks like a really, really good publisher's website, but it's just me and my friends. And, it's the home of it's the port in the storm for all of my friends. We love to create together. Yep. And, almost everyone I've worked with, I've known for 10 to 20 years in comics, and we just like to have a good time with it. So yeah, check us out.
Nice. And you have a Facebook for that, where they constantly try to tell you that your logo violates terms, even though it's your logo.
Yeah. Bots, man, I'll tell you, the world is amazing. But yeah, I just started, I'm consolidating. You know how it is when you're young. You have a page for that. You have a page for this. You have a page for that. You know what? There's just so many ways to spread your own voice thin. That's why Hellbrain was created. And I literally just put the Facebook page up maybe a month ago, and I'm just getting attacked, cyber attacked by dickheads that want me to click on their links. And I'm like, I know I'm old, but I'm not that old, guys. I'm not
seriously. Not to mention that every single other follower that I get on the artist formerly known as Twitter, on the Comic Timing Twitter, because it's new, is a fake dummy account with one tweet on it and an attractive looking lady in the profile pic. I'm like, yeah, blocked. Thank you very much. I ain't stupid.
Yeah, you're not falling for that trap. That's not gonna happen.
Absolutely not.
It's so crazy. I get texts from people. I get texts from bots.
Yeah,
really.
Sometimes I respond back, and then I wind up posting it. Sometimes I post song lyrics in the text just to screw with them, because oh, hello Dave, are you going to make it to dinner tonight? No, I am not Dave, but thank you very much. And you blocked. Or sometimes if they say something silly enough, I will then respond with an entire wall of lyrics to a song, which then they're like, I don't understand. I'm like, yeah, you sure don't. Block. Enough said.
Amazing. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it with Slayer lyrics. That's going to be amazing.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I'm just post the lyrics to Dead Skin Mask. They're going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? He wants to wear my face? And why does it rhyme?
My God. Dave, man, this has been a goddamn pleasure. Thank you so much.
Dude, so good, man.
Next thing you have, come back on. We'll shoot the shit all over again. It'll be goddamn delightful.
Oh, amazing. Love it, man.
Fantastic. And thank you guys out there. Before I get to the music, I want to point out that we now officially, to be fair, we've had it for 16 years, but I have not advertised it at all. We have a Comic Timing fan group. Facebook.com/Comic Timing has a link to it, and you can just put in Comic Timing fans into Facebook and find it. We're trying to build that community up a little bit and have people hang out there. So do check out the Comic Timing fan group if you are a fan of Comic Timing. And I was going to say at the beginning of this episode a couple of names of people who have joined the Patreon. There have been too many over these past couple of weeks, and I just want to straight up say thank you to every single one of you. It doesn't matter if it's $1 or whatever that have joined the Patreon. You guys are amazing, and the outpouring of support has been absolutely delightful, both for my own mental health and for the fact that it's great to know that you're out there. So thank you very much for everybody who's joined up at patreon.com/Comic Timing 100%. And with that, I will now end this episode with the theme song again, because that's how this thing works. Email address is comictiming@gmail.com. We are on Instagram at Comic Timing Podcast. We are on Twitter. That's right, Twitter. It's called Twitter at Comic Timing Pod. We are at Blue Sky at Comic Timing. We have other pages that I'm not remembering, but Facebook.com/Comic Timing for the main Facebook page, and again, the Comic Timing fan group as well. I'd like to once again thank Dave Dwonch and his beautiful, beautiful bald head for joining us here. And as always, there's always time for comics.